The morning bell of Oakeentown Primary School was more than just a signal. It was a warning. It clanged through the dusty air with a sharpness that made goats bleat and sent barefoot children racing down the narrow red earth roads. The entire town seemed to pause for a moment. Market women turned their heads, Okada riders slowed down, because everyone knew what that bell meant. Madame Veronica Okafor was about to begin her rounds. She was a woman whose name carried more weight than the headmaster's. In Oakeentown, when a child misbehaved at home, parents didn't threaten with, "I'll tell your father." They said, "I'll report you to Madame Veronica." That was enough to make any child freeze. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark skin that gleamed like roasted cocoa under the sun, she moved with military precision. Her ironed Ankara blouse tucked into a brown skirt that never had a single wrinkle. Her black shoes were always polished to mirror shine, and her walking cane, a long, thin piece of bamboo she called Corrector, was never far from her hand. No one knew her age. Some said 40, others 50. But she carried herself with the ageless sternness of someone born to command. The older teachers feared her temper. The younger ones envied her authority. But it was the pupils who feared her most. She had earned that fear over 15 long years. Stories about her were told in whispers under mango trees and in market stalls. Some said she once made a boy wash the entire school toilet because he yawned during her lesson. Others swore she flogged a whole class just because one pupil sneezed without saying, "Excuse me." And yet, behind all the rumors, one thing remained certain. Madame Veronica got results. Her pupils always passed their exams. Parents adored her for that, even if their children trembled at the mention of her name. That Monday morning, the Harmattan breeze swept through the town, carrying red dust and the faint smell of roasted groundnuts. The sun had barely risen, still hiding shyly behind the baobab trees. From her small cement house near the market, Madame Veronica tied her headscarf with the same carefulness she used for everything. On the wall beside her bed hung a framed picture, a younger woman holding a smiling boy in school uniform. The glass was cracked, but she dusted it gently before leaving for school, as she did every morning. By 7:45 a.m., she was at the school gate, standing tall like a soldier at inspection. Children slowed their steps when they saw her, straightening uniforms, tucking shirts, hiding contraband biscuits in their pockets. "Good morning, Ma," they chorused, bending slightly. "Good morning," she replied, voice clipped. "Keep your shirts in, no running, no noise. School is not market." The gatekeeper nodded respectfully and saluted her with his cap. Even he feared her authority. By 80, she was already walking from class to class, cane in hand, eyes scanning like a hawk. Her presence alone maintained order. In Primary 5, two boys who'd been playing 10-10 quickly separated and pretended to read. In Primary 3, a girl hid a lollipop under her tongue so fast her friend thought it vanished by magic. "Discipline," Madame Veronica often said, "is the backbone of success. You bend now, you break tomorrow." The teachers called her Iron Lady. The students called her Madame Corrector. And that morning, she felt particularly strict. Something in the air told her the week would test her patience. She was right. It happened just as she reached the assembly ground. There was a small commotion at the gate. A child standing alone, holding a torn bag, staring at the school building like someone seeing it for the first time. He was a boy, slim and small, wearing a faded white shirt and khaki shorts that looked like they had survived too many washings. His hair was neatly brushed, but his face carried an odd calm. Not fear, not excitement, just calm. She marched toward him. "Hey, young man, what are you doing outside during assembly?" He turned slowly. His eyes, deep brown with an unusual sharpness, met hers without blinking. "I'm new," he said simply. His voice was soft but clear. Something about it made her pause. "New? From where?" "From Umuchi village," he replied. "My name is Chibuike Nnamdi." His pronunciation was perfect, his tone too confident for a boy his size. She looked around for his parent or guardian. No one. "Where's your mother?" "She said I should come and learn." The way he said it, calm, certain, felt strange. "Which class?" "Class 5. She frowned. "You just got here and you already know your class?" "Yes, Ma," he said. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "You teach there." Her eyebrows rose. "Who told you that?" He shrugged. "I just know." For a second, she thought he was being rude. She was about to snap at him when the headmaster appeared behind her. "Ah, Madam Veronica, this must be the new boy from Umuchi. His uncle brought his transfer papers yesterday. Smart child, I hear." She nodded curtly. "We'll see about that." When she turned back to the boy, he was already standing straight, hands behind his back, as if he had been her pupil for years. "Follow me," she said. They walked into class 5, and as soon as the pupils saw her, they straightened instantly. "Good morning, Ma," they chorused. "Sit down," she said, scanning their faces. "We have a new student. His name is Chibuike Nnamdi. Make sure you copy your notes neatly. I don't tolerate laziness." Chibuike bowed slightly and walked to an empty seat by the window. The morning light fell across his face, and for a moment, Madame Veronica froze. His eyes, there was something too familiar in them. She shook the thought away and picked up her chalk. "Mathematics," she barked. "Open your books." For the next 40 minutes, she taught with her usual authority. But every time she turned, those eyes were on her. Calm, observant, almost knowing. He never smiled, never looked away, never fidgeted like the others. At one point, she caught herself staring back. "Is something wrong, Ma?" he asked politely. The class gasped. No pupil had ever dared question her mid-lesson. "Stand up," she snapped. "You think this is your father's house?" He stood without fear. "No, Ma." She glared at him for a few seconds, waiting for a flinch, a tear, anything. But he just looked back, unbothered. The class fell silent, the air thick with tension. Finally, she said, "Sit down." He obeyed quietly, his eyes still on her as he sat. The rest of the class exchanged nervous glances, realizing what had just happened. For the first time in 15 years, someone had stood before Madame Veronica Okafor, and she couldn't break him. As the final bell rang for closing, she packed her books slower than usual. Her mind wasn't on the lesson. Something about that boy, his face, his tone, his strange confidence. It clung to her thoughts like a shadow she couldn't shake off. As she walked home that evening, the sound of children's laughter followed her down the street. But one voice echoed louder than the rest. Soft, calm, familiar. And it said, almost like a whisper on the wind, "Good evening, Madame Vero." She froze. No one had called her Madame Vero in years. The following week, Okeentown Primary School seemed a little quieter than usual, though no one could explain why. Perhaps it was because the pupils had noticed something rare. Madame Veronica wasn't shouting as much. Even the teachers whispered about it in the staff room. "Did you notice she spared that new boy yesterday?" "Yes, oh, the Chibuike boy, the small one with those strange eyes. I heard he didn't even cry when she flogged him." "Ah, don't lie. Nobody escapes her cane." "I swear. She raised it, but she didn't strike hard." By the second week, rumors had begun to fly. Some children said Chibuike had a charm that made him immune to pain. Others swore he was a witch's child. Whatever it was, everyone knew the boy was different. He was calm, too calm. And that calmness irritated Madame Veronica more than open disobedience. Monday morning began with multiplication tables. She stood at the front of Class 5, tapping her cane rhythmically against the desk. 2 times 6. 12, the pupils shouted. 5 times 9. 45. 11 times 11. Only one voice answered, clear and steady. 121, ma. It was Chibuike's voice. The rest of the class looked at him like he'd just invited thunder. Madame Veronica turned, her brows tightening. Why is it only your mouth that works in this class? The boy met her gaze. Because they are afraid, ma. The class gasped. Her cane froze midair. Afraid of what? You, he said simply. She took a step forward, the wooden floor creaking. And you're not? He shook his head slowly. No, ma. Fear doesn't help people learn. For a heartbeat, the room went silent. Dust floated lazily through the beams of sunlight streaming through the open window. Then, whack! The cane struck his desk, not his hand. Bring your palm, she ordered. He obeyed, stretching his small hand out calmly. Not a tremor, not a blink. She lifted the cane again, but something inside her chest tightened. His eyes, steady, dark, knowing, looked exactly like her late son's. She brought the cane down and stopped an inch before his skin. The entire class waited, breath held. Sit down, she said quietly, turning away. The pupils exchanged shocked glances. It had happened again. The Iron Woman had hesitated. During lunch break, Madame Veronica sat alone in the staff room, pretending to mark scripts. Her tea had gone cold. Her mind wasn't in the papers. Madame Vero, the headmaster called from the doorway. That new boy is sharpo. His uncle was right. He finished his arithmetic before everyone else. Maybe you'll make him class prefect. She forced a smile. We'll see. When he left, she exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples. Something about that boy didn't sit right. His tone, his confidence, the way he looked through people instead of at them. She decided to check his desk. Maybe she'd find a clue. After break, when the pupils were playing outside, she walked into Class 5 quietly. Chibuike's desk was the last one by the window. She bent down and opened the small compartment. Inside was a rough notebook with faded blue cover. She flipped it open, and her heart nearly stopped. Neat handwriting filled the page. But these weren't ordinary notes. At the top of the first page was a sentence that sent chills crawling down her spine. The one who punishes without mercy shall one day face her reflection. She flipped to the next page. Forgiveness is the hardest lesson, but some teachers never learn. And on the third page, written in red pencil, Mummy, will you smile at me again? Her hands shook violently. The letters, they looked familiar, slanted slightly to the right, with long tails on the I. Exactly like the handwriting of her late son, Tobe. She remembered it vividly. The way he used to write her small notes. Mummy, buy me Puff Puff. Or, Mummy, I'm sorry. She had kept those notes for years until the fire consumed everything. Now the same handwriting was staring back at her from a stranger's notebook. The classroom suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. She spun around when she heard a voice behind her. Why are you reading my notes, Ma? Chibuike stood at the door, his eyes calm as ever. Her throat went dry. Who wrote this for you? I did. Her voice trembled. Who told you to write these things? No one, he replied, walking slowly toward her. I just remember them. Remember what? she demanded, her voice cracking. He looked at her directly. You don't remember Madame Vero? The way he said her name, the old name her son used to call her, made her heart stop. No one at the school called her that. Not even the headmaster. Her eyes widened. Don't call me that. He tilted his head. Why? You used to like it. She took a step back. Enough of this nonsense. Who told you about my son? Your son? He repeated softly, like the word itself hurt. You mean Toby?